Alright, so we're back finishing up our reassembling of this unit. It's the window regulator motor and gear assembly for 92 Crown Victoria, and I would imagine most Fords have the same product in them. I know this particular one ran for many years, and the reason why we got it apart is the window stopped going up and down because of some issues that I think were poorly engineered into the design of the gear assembly itself. What it is the original assembly has these 3 pins. They're actually more like barrels, not pins, and they're pretty large in size, that go inside this main gear that rides in the worm gear. And then we have this one that goes on top, fits together like so, like this, right? So there's a little bit of slip, a little bit of play in there. You don't want too much, but the original ones were approximately the same size here. But what I've done, instead of going back to Ford and buying new parts for $28 plus tax and shipping, I decided to do something myself, and I'm going to show you what I did. I won't go through all the steps like show and tell, but I can show you exactly the steps sort of that I took. So what I did is I went to the local hardware store and I bought some nylon bushings that were approximately the same diameter. Now originally this thing was about that long, and I'd actually cut the ends off of it, but it's just a round bushing that you'd put a bolt through or something else, and it was, like I said, approximately the same diameter on the outside, and it doesn't matter that there's a hole through the middle. It's actually stronger. This nylon is way stronger than the original part. So what I did is I cut it to length, and you figure that out just by the inside of the gear assembly here. It's from the distance here to there. You know, it's really an approximation. It's a little less than a 7/16 of an inch. So I cut these to length, but also I went a little bigger on mine, and I had to kind of cut it out around. And you can, I guess, maybe see these. They're not perfectly round anymore. You can buy a smaller size, but I just wanted to fill in the gap just a little bit more so there was less play on it. And then once I get it to the length and the shape that I need it, and what I did is I actually cut them here on my tile saw, my wet saw. This thing works really well. It's a lower RPM. You don't have to worry about cutting fingers because this type of blade, it's a tile blade. It will burn instead of cut. So if you touch your finger on it, the burn is actually pretty mild, even if you get that far. So you don't have to worry about really damaging yourself, but you should still really be careful with what you're doing. So the other part of this, the last part of the modification for these things to work, is inside, and I know it's going to be really hard to see, there's a little raised part inside this gear. So it's not just flat where you could just cut this piece off flat. You actually have to either notch it or cut a groove, and I've actually done both. So a side view on this one, it's not perfect, but this little groove right here will fit right over the top of that and make it sit level and flat where it's supposed to inside this assembly. And so the same thing with the rest of these. None of these are perfect. It doesn't matter as long as they fit in there, and then they're doing their job. So we just put these things back into position, and we'll take the rest of the assembly, or the other part of the gear assembly rather. As you can see, this thing's got, it's kind of a triangle shape, and the sides are curved to fit around those pins, and then it goes together just like that. And again, there should be just a little bit of play in there because of the way that the system's designed. And once you get to that point, you should really slather a little grease on here, just some light machine grease. So you can see there's some on there now, maybe a little bit on the threads, and then it just slides right back down into position, just like that. Another part that I forgot to mention when I was putting the motor assembly back together is make sure that when you take this cover off, you put it back on the same way. Otherwise, it's going to change the direction of the motor itself. So if you want them to be in the same, the switches to work the same way they did before, then of course you want to put this together the same way. So we've got this part together. Then the only other part to it is this. And it can only go on one way. And then there's one more screw here. Get this started. Once the holes are lined up. Tighten it up with the driver here. And there is the motor and gear assembly for the window regulator, all put together back nice and neat. And this thing is going to last, in my estimate, at least as long as the original one. This car itself is 19 years old right now, but those things have been breaking apart for quite a while, and I'd already done one of these things and no issues whatsoever. It actually runs quieter and smoother than the original, so I'm pretty happy about it. So in the next little segment, I'm going to show you how to put this thing back together and test it out.